Good morning from the northwest of England and welcome back to my channel, my lovely friends. Hope you're all doing okay and life is treating you really well. I'm making rings at the moment, so I thought I would show you how to make these really cute, really easy to make, super simple braided rings. There's quite a few people have made these in the past, but I just thought I'd show you how I'm making mine. Aren't they sweet? Wear them all at once if you like, which I do, so you know. I will just give you a quick tip. I made this one from 24 gauge and it's a little squishy, as you can see. A little bit squishy, comes out of shape quite easily, whereas these ones are made with 22 gauge, that's 0.6, and there's an awful lot more stability. So I'm going to suggest you use 0.6 22 gauge to make these. So let's just go through a very brief list of materials. So today I'm using 22 gauge 0.6 copper wire. This is rose gold plated, which has got a tarnish resistant coating on it. Now for rings, I think that's, you know, a good idea. That's this one here. And I'm going to be using 3mm beads. So I'm going to be replicating this one. So I'm using these little tiny 3mm, these are little garnets, aren't they cute? Really sweet beads. So 0.3 beads. You can use 0.4 if you want a chunkier ring, but I think with 0.3 you can't really feel them between your fingers. So I've got, you know, a set of all sorts of my little 3mm here. You can use whatever you like. I'm making lots and lots of rings at the moment, so I'm on a ring thing at the minute. So pick out your beads, pick the ones you like. I'll be using these. And what else? You're literally going to need a ring mandrel. You're going to need a ruler, and that's about it, apart from round nose plier, chain nose plier, and obviously a pair of cutters. That's it. So let's get going and make this as quick as possible. I'll see you in a few. So here we go, super easy, super quick. Now obviously I've got quite large hands, so the measurements I'm giving you are, you know, based around the fact that I've got quite large hands. So let's have a think. 8 inches, 10 inches for one piece, and I'm going to say 8 inches for the other piece, and I'll show you what we do with the pieces in a second. So 10 inches and 8 inches, that should see you through most sizes if you've got smaller fingers. Obviously smaller pieces of wire, bend your longer piece of wire in two like so, come in with your round nose pliers and make a loop on one end like so, a little loop. Really easy to do, like so, little loop, and then just pop your wires out to the sides slightly. That's it. And then come in with your shorter piece, place it in the middle of the two, with about 1 inch or so at this top end, because you're going to be winding that around a couple of times. So place your wire in the middle, hold it with your pliers like so. You see that's in the middle? Hold it with your pliers and then wind it around like so, a couple of times like so. That's all you do. And snip off the excess like so, and then just squish that down a little bit so it's nice and neat and that there's no sharp edges. So this is what we have. So we have our long bit in the middle like so. Looks like an arrow with a loop on the end. Let's just get those spread apart. So essentially you've got the long bit in the middle And then you just spread out the shorter ones like so. Okay, so come in with your beads. So we have our beads here. Pop a bead on like so. If I can see the hole, which I can't. There we go, pop a bead on. Drop it down. Okay, so the first, I'm going to be using my right hand, obviously, because I'm right-handed. Pop the bottom wire over the top and the top wire underneath, like so. And that's your first bead. Pop another bead on. Like so, and bring it down. Hold it with your fingers. Bottom wire over the top. Squish everything up, like so. Bottom wire underneath. And that encapsulates your little bead in like a little braid type affair. I'll just do a couple more. Bead on. This wire over the top. Top wire underneath. And pull, make it everything nice and secure. So you basically just keep going like that. Where's the hole? There it is. Bead on. This wire over the top. This wire underneath. Like so. Obviously, left-handers, you just reverse what I'm doing. As long as you do the same wrap, the same braid, so like the bottom over the top, top underneath. You keep going all the way along like that. All right, so let me count how many I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 3mm beads, and that's a T. All right, so you can probably work out if you need a smaller size. You're not going to need as many beads, so I'll see you back when I've got a few more beads on. Have fun. And we're back. How are you getting along? Let's just put the last one on. Now don't forget that this is a specific size for me. I'm making this in an M for my little finger. So, you know, what looks like I'm running out of wire here, I would be if you were, if I was making a larger size. So the long wire, need to make it as long as you think. I don't know, 10, 12 inches, something like that. And then the center wire maybe could be a bit shorter, but you know, work it out for yourselves. Put the last bead on. Right, so I'm making this into an M. So what you do, pop it on your mandrel very gently, bend the wire around the mandrel like so. When it looks like that and you've got a little bit, just a tiny bit of space, that's when you finish. All right, so you want it to look like so. So what you do, wind these two around twice. So you've got this, snip off on either side. Super easy. Here we go. And then just use your pliers to squish this down. Twist and squish will burnish the little sharp areas. If it's sharp, just come in with your file, give it a bit of a file down. Right, pop it back on your mandrel and let's have a look. Okay, so that's what we're looking for when it's about there, because there will be a bit of spring back, don't forget. So I'm just going to cut this about here, maybe maybe a tad shorter. That's maybe about 1.5 inches. Feed that wire through. Now it's going to get squished up at this stage, don't worry. Pop it back on your mandrel and give it a pull. Go in with your pliers if you need to. There we go, and shape it still around your mandrel. Check your finger, yep, that works perfectly. Now a lot of people just snip it here and then fold this little bit of wire down. I prefer it to have a little bit more stability. So I just hold the loop with my plier, bend that wire underneath and just wrap it round a couple of times like so. And this is going to be underneath your finger, so it won't matter too much, like so, and then just snip the excess. Just snip the excess like so, and then squish that wire down. Back on your mandrel, and then just push things into place, round it off like so, and there we have our little ring. Aren't they gorgeous? Little braided rings. Make one for every finger, why not? All right, so I'm just going to pop this into my little playlist, which is about rings, because I'm making quite a few rings at the moment. So there is our little braided ring. Have fun making those. Let me know how you get on in the comments. Super, super easy, and yet super effective, aren't they? Make them in different coloured wires and lots of different coloured beads. And look how neat they are underneath. Super comfy, really comfortable. All right, so I'll see you in my next video. Have fun with those, guys. Bye.